Ooh, y'all, this misinformation makes me nervous because I am not a medical doctor. I have a doctor of philosophy, so outside of my field. But I can't let it go. I can't let it go. So if you are watching this and you are a medical doctor and you are familiar with this research, please correct me. Let's dive in.
A significant 2012 study, the sit-to-stand test was a predictor of mortality for people ages 51 to 80. So we're going to demonstrate it today with Mom. You ready for it?
Yes.
So you need a chair that has back arms across your body, and you're going to sit and stand, not yet, sit and stand, once I put the stopwatch on for 30 seconds. And ready, set, go. Just sit and 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so you can go watch the full video if you want to, but basically they demonstrate what they're calling the sit and stand test, and then they talk about the results in terms of like what is above, below average for a woman of her mother's age. I don't know why my research spidey senses tingled with the video, but they did. So I was like, oh, let's look up this 2012 significant study. Now, as I always say, one of the issues here is that if you don't give the citation for the study, harder to know exactly what study you're talking about again. So someone please jump in. But there is a 2012 study about sit and stand that talks about the same mortality rate they mentioned in the video. So let's pull it up. So this is the study. It was published in, sorry, I have to get so close to read this because I don't have great eyesight, the Journal of Preventive Cardiology. And what I want you to pay really close attention to here is the title of the study: Ability to Sit and Rise from the Floor as a Predictor of All-Cause Mortality. So if you were to demonstrate the sit and stand test discussed in this 2012 study that found it to be a significant predictor of mortality, death, what you would actually need to do is sit on the floor and get up. And what the researchers considered was how much support you needed to get up. So you can pause to read this if you want, but you can see the person who's evaluating this sit and stand test is don't worry about the speed of movement. You're just trying to sit and then rise up from the floor using the minimum support that you believe is needed. And there's a point system, and you can lose points for using supports like your hand, your forearm, your knee, etc. to help you stand up. You start with 5 points and you lose 1 point for each support you use, and then you lose an additional half point if the evaluator thinks that you're unsteady or losing balance. And there are other things that you can lose points for. I'm not going to go into it all, but that is how your score in this sit to stand test is created. Of note, it has nothing to do with you crossing your arms, sitting in a chair, standing up, and repeating and seeing how many times you can do that in a certain amount of time. So when they say, which they do, in this little conclusion preview section, that this sit to stand is a significant predictor of mortality in 51 to 80-year-old people, what that means is this test they designed where you sit on the ground and stand up. But this doctor had this nifty little chart about the average amount of time someone could sit or stand. So I was that must come from somewhere, and it does. But it doesn't come from this 2012 study. I found it on this handy dandy little graphic from the CDC about the 30-second chair stand assessment. And you can see from this little graphic up here, that looks exactly like these people were just demonstrating. And you can see these average scores, the ones that they showed in their video. And the point is to time for 30 seconds and count you sitting and standing, just as demonstrated in the video. So if you zoom in, this is what's of note here, in my opinion. You look down here to what do these scores mean? A below average score indicates a risk for falls. Falls do not necessarily equal mortality, and that graphic does not talk about mortality. So what's happening is we're opening with talk about this sit to stand test that has a significant 2012 study that shows it's related to mortality, that it's related to death. Then we're demonstrating a different test that is used to assess risk for falls. I'm not a medical doctor. I would assume that as you're older, a fall could mean like death or severe injury that leads to death. However, I personally would still classify this as misinformation because the intro in the video, straight out of the gate, this 2012 sit to stand test, significant predictor of mortality, like the demonstration, like it sets it up, like the demonstration for that test is what they show, and that is not the test that they used in the study. It is completely different. Instead, they're showing a 30-second chair sit test that is more about risk of falling. I personally really don't like to get anywhere near medical research because, again, so not my area of expertise. And at the same time, this just seems to be like such a glaring example of not carefully, truthfully presenting research. And that just like really frustrates me. And I think it's wrong. Like, wrong to do that. We shouldn't do that. This is why people lose faith in science. I get it. And if you're thinking, like, Kirsten, you're being so harsh, like, maybe it was an honest mistake, an accident. Like, maybe they saw stand, and test and thought it was the same thing and didn't realize it. Like, people make mistakes. Is it really that big of a deal? I've also thought that. And, like, it is that big of a deal. It's like whenever you're sharing information with people, especially, like, on a social media platform, you're sharing information with lots of people, you have a responsibility to make sure that what you're sharing is accurate, truthful, full context. Like, that is a responsibility you're taking on when you're sharing information and presenting it as true. And I think the way this is presented, whether it's intentional or not, is inaccurate and it is misleading with what the research actually says. And so, regardless of whether it's intentional or not, like, it should be pointed out and called out and addressed. And of course, if there's a secret study out there, secret to me that I wasn't able to find, that is about a test that looks exactly like the test they did, that showed the exact same things in 2012 as this other test that looked completely different, I would love to know about it. And just, that's why we should cite our sources, because then it would be easier to like double, triple confirm inaccuracies and accuracies.